So Wednesday, 22 May, beautiful autumn day, pretty much the perfect temperature for riding a bike. So I felt pretty low the last few days. Sometimes things just get to you and you let your mind race with things, start questioning everything. My brain's just going through all these things. So how do I tackle my depression? Short answer, not very well. I guess I'm still here, haven't taken the ultimate way out. Been on my mind many times. So what do? Well, after so many years, one thing I've learned is just wait another day, because sometimes just waking up the next day can refresh that slate. It can, to a degree. It might take several days, but how do you get through those several days? You're really down. Everybody's situation is different though, of course, so anything I say, don't even treat it like advice. It's just what I do. It may or may not suit you at all, not even a bit. And I know I'm lucky in lots of ways. I'm mobile, I've got a bicycle to exercise with, I've got other exercise equipment, I've got a house where it's not very crowded and the crime rate's pretty low, and I'm pretty healthy, even though I've got things I am challenged with. But my health, where it is today, is because of the effort I put in. And without talking about too much what I've mentioned before in the other videos I've had, you just got to occupy your brain with something. Well, something that's not too negative and destructive. The way I get through most of the time is just by pure distraction. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll get on my bike and I'll just go for a ride and try to enjoy the nature that's around me. And of course that'll be really difficult for some people, because they'll be stuck in a built-up city with lots of people and their mind is just being bombarded with all that noise and everybody's stresses, tensions. Although I guess some people could also use that as background white noise. Everybody's different. Some people, you put them out in nature and the peace and quiet, and they'll feel very uncomfortable, might even feel scared, terrified even. So like I said, everybody is so different. But I think it's true that you have to distract your mind from the destructive thoughts and feelings. So you got to work out how to do that for yourself. When I say for yourself, I mean what works for you specifically. You can go online and ask questions on how to overcome depression and stuff like that. And they'll just give you a handful of generic things you can do. And usually when there's a list like that, you'll go through that list and go, nope, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. But there might be one or two things that you can say, well, actually, you know, I probably could do that if I put some effort in even. So you've got to find that thing for you. And people's conditions vary too, of course. There's not one cure for everyone, the same cure. Some things will work for some people, not others. And as much as sometimes we say, we don't want to live here anymore, or I've had enough of this planet, or can God take me now, or the aliens take me now, or give me that heart attack for once and take me off this planet. As much as you say all that, whether it's in a diary, on a forum, on a reel, social media, when you're saying that, you're not really actually saying that. You don't really want to die. What you want is for the pain that you're feeling to stop. You don't want that suffering to continue. You don't want to endure your situation anymore. So when you say these things, write them down, broadcast to the world in one form or another. You're sort of trying to reach out for an answer, another way out, apart from taking your own life. Because we can see that there are other people in the world enjoying their life, having a good time, smiling, laughing, being happy. And we see that and we get envious, feel we're unworthy for whatever reason, feel like we don't deserve it, feel like we're getting punished for some reason that we can't understand, and there doesn't seem to be a way out, and we don't want that to continue. So we start thinking about the only alternative we feel there is. So what are the alternatives? Well, as I said, you got to find that thing that's going to help you get through the day, a positive thing, not a negative thing, not like alcohol or drugs, because then you're in a completely different type of reality, which is actually harmful for you. I said, don't be destructive. So back to the question, what do you do? I'll probably come back to that, saying that a few times, because my mind keeps going off on tangents as I talk, I think of things. And one thing sometimes I have a habit of doing, sometimes it's purely out of wonderment, because I'm very curious. So sometimes when I ask questions of people, I know these days people have a habit of taking things the wrong way, but when I ask a question of people, I'm genuinely interested in why they think that way or why they've done something a particular way, because I want to know, because it might help me. I just got to be careful how I ask the question, not to put the person offside. So this is what happens. I go off on a tangent and I forget what I was talking about. So as far as what do you do? Oh yeah, so I could start rattling off some things you could do, but then you might do what I do sometimes, like I was saying, and trying to find negative things to it or poke holes in it or saying why it wouldn't work for you or whatever. And some of your answers might be true, but we've got to stop looking at things in such a critical way, like poo-pooing it straight off. It's rubbish what you're saying because of such and such. So maybe just when you read some of these things or hear of these options, you don't have to say anything, just consider it for a moment and see how it possibly could work for you. Because you know, often the times when things aren't working for us, we have to really take responsibility for ourselves and admit that we've got some sort of wall that we put up that we don't want to do something, or there's a whole bunch of reasons and excuses why we don't want to try certain things. But the trouble is, I've said this before to people who complain about their situations for a long time and keep covering the same ground over and over. If you don't do something different, then nothing's going to be different. So for all the time that things haven't been working for you a particular way, maybe it's time to say, you know what, I might have to try a different approach to get a different result. So back to the question again, what do you do? How do you tackle it? How do you tackle the depression that you feel every day and the feeling that you just no longer want to keep going? How do you do that? The answer is, it's really fucking hard to do anything. And sometimes people just don't want to put the effort in. It's too much of a struggle. It might cause too much pain. But you know, I think about a little situation often, and I say all this because I've got to talk myself out of bad thinking. So I'm not giving this advice just to everybody else for the sake of it. I've got to say it so I hear myself saying it because it helps me. Anyway, back to the little story or situation. I remember quite a few years ago, I saw a dog rescue video, and this poor dog, I can't remember what sort it was, but it had been abused for years, housed in an awful situation. I don't think it even ever felt grass until it was rescued. Very timid dog, obviously been abused a lot. Anyway, and it had a few deformities from being abused, things not healing right. And this dog had been living a miserable life, really miserable. You could just imagine it. And I don't know from memory, but I'm sure there would have been people who would have commented, just put the thing down, end its suffering, put it down. And you know what? These rescue people found this dog. It was in shabby condition. I think it might have even been blind in one eye. But anyway, you've probably seen these types of videos before. The rescue people come in, takes a while for the dog to get into their hands because they've got to use different techniques to coax the dog out. But they did, they coaxed it out, took it home, or took it to their clinic. They clipped the dog of all the crap hair, cleaned off all the parasites and things that were living on it. You know what, actually I think it had two bad eyes now that I think of it, but they were able to save one eye. Because I remember thinking, how is this dog even surviving day to day, not being able to see? So they get this dog cleaned up, and health-wise they get it back on track pretty well. It can see in its good eye now, and it's starting to eat decent food, and it's getting used to the people that are looking after it. And eventually that dog is introduced to other dogs that have been rescued, and they get to play in a little yard with grass on it. And the dog looks at it feels the grass, he wasn't sure what to make of it. And within a very short time, this dog was rolling around happy, jumping around, even with, I think it had a bad leg, it was still jumping around, playing with the other dogs. And you can see the happiness, I got a bit of a lump in my throat just thinking about it. You can see the happiness in this dog, and everything that happened prior to that is just a distant memory. And the dog is happy now. It's happy, it's feeling happiness, and joy, and the love from the people that rescued it. So it went from being in a terrible place to probably not wanting to swap the place they're in for anything in the world because they just love it. Now, of course, a couple of things there. That dog had someone to rescue it, and the other thing is that dog would never have even thought about taking its life. It just had an instinctual feeling of needing to survive. And this is the difference with humans, because we have evolved to the point where, well, life can mean a lot of different things to people, but people can so freely take that life away, whether it's someone else's life or their own. And that's a sad thing, because we've programmed our minds to move away from the instinctual habit of trying to preserve our life to just throwing it away at a moment's thought. And we do give up too easy these days. And I think it's only a recent thing in human history. If you look back, not even 100 years ago, we've been around for a long time, but not even 100 years ago, people collectively wanted to do everything to survive. Yeah, sure, people still committed suicide long time ago, I know that. But as a species, we didn't think about taking our own life because life was too hard. And I know life's a bit different than it was back then. There's a lot of challenges today, I know that. I guess I'm just trying to say and convince myself that life really is a precious thing. It is precious. It is precious. You've got to tell yourself that. And you're here on this planet because of a really, what's the word I'm trying to look for? When something got a really low chance of happening. You know what I mean? It's like trying to win the lottery. The chance of something happening is pretty low. There's a word for it, I'm sure. Wish I had better vocabulary to articulate what I'm trying to say so people can instantly grasp what I'm saying. But anyway, you being on this earth, the chance of you being here was so slim, but you made it, right? And the fact that you're old enough to be listening to me, watching me, listening to me, whatever, you've got through a number of years, you've survived that. You should be proud of that. You've survived it. With all the adversity in the world today, you're still here. And you're listening to me because you probably did a search for something to alleviate your suffering. And you know what? Well done you. Because it's a bloody hard thing to do. But back to what can we do about it? I've mentioned distracting your mind. Right, what are the ways to distract your mind in a positive way? You can reach out to people that might be in a similar situation. So there are forums out there, some good, some not so good. Join a forum. I'd probably do some reading before I do any writing. See what the atmosphere is like, how receptive they might be to new people, what sort of advice they might give, or comfort. Sometimes we don't need advice because we sort of know what we need to do anyway, but we need some comfort and people to understand and just listen and just be there. So forums, that's one thing. There's groups, physical groups that you could probably join or attend that have people with similar sort of situations or challenges, and you can share that and see how they deal with it and how they manage, and you never know who you might meet out of that. Sometimes there are people who can feel depressed and lonely because they are on their own, but there's plenty of people who feel depressed and lonely in a situation where they've got a relationship, and for different reasons they feel that way. So you could join a physical group like that. Of course, there's already people, as soon as I said that might be saying, providing some defences to that, and I can't go out with people, I'm agoraphobic, or whatever the situation might be. Okay, fair enough. But everything you're suffering can be alleviated in some form or another. So yeah, okay, you might be agoraphobic, but you know very well that you can wean yourself out of that. It depends how important it is to you. So what else? You've probably got some sort of interest in something you like to do. I mean, it's pretty hard to go through this world without being interested in a single solitary thing. So if you've got some sort of interest, you can mix with other people, whether it's online or physically, who have got the similar or same interests. And you have discussions about those things. And you create relationships with people. And you might say, well, I don't need a relationship with people. Well, actually, you sort of do. Because human beings really weren't meant to be on their own, in my opinion. Yes, people do live on their own. People live happily on their own. But even those people who live happily on their own, deep down, they'd like to be living their life and share that great feeling that they've got in their life with someone else in a way that works. They don't want all the problems that come with it. So a lot of these sort of people that would rather live their life on their own just don't feel that there is anyone who can meet all their needs and requirements. And I don't dispute that. Okay, so where were we at? I talked about forums, physical groups, interest groups. Now, of course, we're all afflicted in different ways. Some of us can't get out of our beds. Like physically, we're just unable to do it, not because we're too lazy to do it. we just can't get out. And that can be quite a bad situation. But again, it comes down to your mental coping skills. We all know that there's people that are living 24/7 confined to a bed. And I'm not saying they enjoy their situation, but they make the most of it. And they feel happy to be alive because they can watch documentaries, read books, listen to music, have friends around, share stories, go to forums, all that sort of stuff. So they're making the most of it. And that's another thing I do, is I compare myself to other people. I know everybody says don't compare yourself to other people, but in this case you sort of can. You can say, you know what, I'm whinging and complaining about this situation. I've really got no right to, because this person is in a much more worse situation than me, and they've made it work for themselves to get something out of their life. So in that way, I do compare myself sometimes to people because I don't want to be a whinger. I don't want to sook about how hard my life might be or my situation might be because of something I haven't got in my life, or needs aren't being met, or some place I can't go to, or whatever it might be. Because if I want there to be a change in my life, I've got to make that change. So that takes a lot of mental effort. And how do we get strong mentally? Because that's what this is all about, isn't it? Being strong mentally enough to get through day to day and live on with our lives in some sort of comfortable fashion, physically, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. I'm not against religion. I'm not practicing myself. If it benefits you in a positive way and doesn't negatively impact anyone else. And I've said to people in the past, it doesn't matter what you do in this life, you can do whatever you want, or you should be able to do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't negatively impact anyone or anything else. And that's how laws should be applied. So mental fortitude, having that mental capacity to go on. How do we tackle that? Well, from my experience, there's a couple of things that we need to think about. How bad is our mental capacity? If you've got enough cognitive ability to watch this, understand it, and act upon it, then you've got a few choices. You can seek health professional help. You can make sure that you've got a good diet and you're keeping your body as physically fit as you can manage. Because diet and exercise, it's been repeated a million times, is very important to your well-being, your physical and mental well-being. So if you're a person that just likes to eat a lot of junk food, takeaways, fatty foods, processed foods, lots of carbonated drinks, then you might have to reassess your eating habits. Because not only, as you very well know, it's not doing your physical health any good. And that can be contributing to how you're feeling right now. So you've got to change your eating habits. You don't have to be extreme. Start cutting out the stuff that's killing you, or at least cut back on it. For all the good work you might do, you can have a little reward, that's fine. You can have a few pieces of chocolate, that's fine. You don't have to eat a whole birthday cake on your own, all right? There's all sorts of people that want to justify the way they look and taking certain phrases out of context to make it suit their own life, like love who you are, be true to yourself and that sort of thing. No, don't do that shit. They're selling you a lie, trying to make you feel good all the way to your grave, your early grave, all right? And you might be quite willing to go along with it because you don't care. You don't feel like you deserve anything different. You don't feel like you deserve to be slimmer, to live longer, to live happier. I'm not telling you what to do. You can do what you want, really. It's your life. And if you are truly happy inside with the way your life is, then good luck to you. My point is, it doesn't have to be miserable. We can change it. But of course we've got to be prepared to put a little bit of effort in to make the change. So back to a few moments ago, diet and exercise, that could be a starting point. That's something that you can do, all right? And if you want a better diet, you think, well, what am I going to eat? Well, look, today it's so easy. There are so many recipes online and how-to tutorials to cook anything, right? So learn to cook. Maybe go to a cooking class. Talk about cooking on forums. And when you start achieving little things like that, like cooking your own meal, you'll start feeling a bit proud of yourself. Satisfied that that meal that you're eating now, you made that. And this is what you got to do with everything. Every little bit of exercise you do, you think, oh shit, I just did that. Maybe you haven't walked around the block for 20 years and now you're doing it. You can do it. So diet and exercise, that's one thing you can do yourself. Then you may need professional help because we do have situations that we've got to get out of first. So obviously, like for example, you're a very active person and then you break your leg or a hip or something that puts you in hospital. Well, okay, you can't just say, oh, well, I'll just go out and start working again at a lower level. No, well, you've got to get yourself to the point where you can get back out there. So get some professional help. In that case, it would have been hospital. they get you to the point where you're able to then start managing your own self. So in relation to mental health, it could be that you have to talk to someone for a little while to discuss the issues that are your challenges, because everyone's are so unique to themselves. And medication in the right dose and the right chemical makeup can be very beneficial to just get you at least back onto track. Now, it may be a situation where you do actually have to have that medication for the rest of your life because of the way your body performs. Now, I'm no medical expert, so I'm not suggesting that your body can't change, so you might be able to wean off this stuff. I don't know. And I personally know people that have been on medication for a long time and they are fine with it. I know others that have modified their doses, and then there's people like myself who have been on medication for depression and have had a couple of different types of scripts and have had different effects from different pills, and has worked to at least stabilise you for a while, so then you can start making some rational and well thought out decisions yourself. Because they can be quite opposite as well. I've been on medication where it's really affected my cognitive reasoning, and I made some foolish decisions to things in my life. So medication, of course, you know, can have an adverse effect. I mean, if you look at any antidepressant medication, one of the side effects is it can make you more suicidal, which is ironic, isn't it? So, in other words, it's got to be monitored. But once you get it right, you can start getting control of your life a bit. And when you can start doing that with the right medication and you engaging in the right arenas of people and groups, whatever, you will start feeling a positive change in your life. And as I said, for me, I eventually weaned off all my antidepressive medication. I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my 40s. I didn't even know I was depressed. And I was assessed with quite severe depression, but I was one of those high-functioning people. A lot of people had no idea, except maybe my very closest people in my life could occasionally see that I was having a really off day or something like that. So I was able to wean off it because I was determined to do that. My doctor didn't tell me to wean off it. I just wanted to have better control of my life and my mind, and for me, it worked out. But maybe it wouldn't have worked out if I didn't combine it with a healthier diet and exercise. Perhaps if I sat around in front of my computer just watching TV all day or playing games, secluded away in my room, weaning off the medication might not have been an option. Could have been quite detrimental. So that's something else you can do, isn't it? That's seeking professional help. And of course I know that accessing such help is not easy, or it can be difficult, depending on your location and your financial circumstances. Sometimes you can get assistance, financial assistance, through various funds and government projects, but sometimes it's not available. And that can be difficult. But that's where, like I said, if your cognitive ability is enough to understand what I'm saying here, and you're just looking for some sort of assistance to get through, then at least you should be able to hopefully manage your diet and your exercise. As far as diet and exercise is concerned, I'm not going to promote anything in particular because everybody's circumstances are different. Their nutritional requirements and their physiological restrictions might stop you doing certain things that I do. I do try to avoid processed foods as much as I can. Well, look, I still give myself a luxury with certain things, but I've been avoiding processed meats for quite a while. Occasionally I'll still indulge to a small degree, but for the most part I don't partake in it. So what else can you do? We've talked about reaching out, forums, physical groups that you can attend, medical health professional intervention, medication, diet and exercise. Is there much more? Maybe we're trying to make it too complicated. Often the case is that we do think that our situation is too complicated. Sometimes we can't even start talking about it because our mind is flooded with things we want to say and we don't know what to say first. And then we're worried about how we might say it in case we don't convey it correctly to represent what we're really thinking and feeling, and people might take it the wrong way, get confused, whatever. And that's why while I'm talking here, it's all straight off the cuff talk as it comes to my mind as I'm riding this bike, and there's plenty of pauses, breathtaking and thinking, and sometimes re-saying what I just said 2 moments ago, which I might have edited out. For various reasons, I might edit because I might not have made myself clear. I might have used a word that I didn't mean to use, or just didn't convey exactly what I was trying to say. Again, I'm just talking away to hear myself talk. So this is like self-therapy in a way. And if it helps anyone to be listening to it, to help them reassess their lives, well, that's a good thing. And I'm happy to share it. If you've got a question about something in particular, I'm happy to try to answer it. I'm not saying that my answer will be of any value to you, but as a 57-year-old guy that suffered depression for a while, this is what I said before. So I got diagnosed in my 40s, but I didn't realise until that moment that I've been suffering depression since my mid-teens due to certain situations in my life at the time, or up until that time. So when I got diagnosed, a lot of things started to make sense. Didn't mean it was any easier, but at least I understood why. And I think once we have some understanding of the way we are feeling or what we're challenged with, I think it does help, especially if it's a past thing that's traumatised your life in some way. It can help to get over it. Some people might need professional help to get over things because the way their trauma affected them had a different impact than it would someone else. This is what we have to understand about other people too who are dealing with mental health problems. First of all, it's not really a thing that we can see that people are dealing with. Sometimes you can tell because sometimes people have mental health problems in association with physical problems, and you can spot it a mile away. Sometimes they're not so easy unless you've got some sort of experience of dealing with people with mental health issues. In my occupation, I dealt with people quite a lot with mental health issues, which in some way helped me engage with them easier. Not always, but sometimes. Yeah, so spotting someone's mental health situation is not always an easy thing to do. And so we have to be kinder to each other. We really do. I try my best to be kind to everyone I engage with. But it's not always easy. Sometimes that can be a challenge. I will sometimes call people out for saying certain things. I try not to do it in a bad way. I try to do it tactfully to maybe get them to see what they said was either straight out false or looking from a wrong perspective or not taking certain other things into account. But that's not always easy. Some people are quite obsessed with the way they feel and think, and they're immovable in their opinion. So instead of carrying on an argument with these sort of people, I have learnt to hold back for my own mental health. This is another thing that we have to be able to do too. This is an important thing, especially in today's social media environment. People are too quick to jump in and add their 2 cents worth. I've been guilty of it myself, I'm not going to lie about that, and I used to do it quite regularly, and I'll say that it actually was when I was on my medication. So part of me helping myself, healing myself, was to learn to control what I say, when I say it, or how to say it. So we have to learn to bite our tongues a little bit. And the other reason we're going to learn to bite our tongues is because we really don't know what the other person is dealing with, why they're writing that even. We make a lot of assumptions, and often we are right, but sometimes people say things and we come back at them with some sort of attack or whatever. We've got really no right to do that because, well, it's not that we don't have a right, we just probably shouldn't do that. Because A, we get into a conflict with that person and they could be just trying to deal with something in their own way. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just not good for our well-being either to be arguing with people for something that's probably not that important in the whole scheme of things. So I've learned to disengage a lot with people's challenging banter. So now I've really lost my train of thought. I've talked about different ways that you can improve your mental health, or at least often when we talk about mental health, we're often talking about depression. And I guess that's what I'm focused on, depression, which is a big factor in society these days and more prominent these days. I'm not saying people didn't suffer it in the past, they just suffered a different way. Maybe didn't have time to be sitting around chatting about it and diagnosing it because their life was so revolved around just surviving day to day. Whereas these days we have a lot more leisure time, a lot more time to be sitting around doing nothing, a lot more time to be on our own perhaps with our own thought, not being a part of the community, not feeling valued or worthy, which in days gone by, people were all part of a community, weren't they? And people still are. There are people that are part of a community, and anyone can be, but there's reasons for people not doing that, and I understand that. I'm not in any social groups myself. Maybe I should be. How you going, guys? Good. So depression. If it's just depression you've got, that could be a good thing in one way. If you've got depression and a bunch of other things, obviously things become a bit more challenging. They become challenging from a health professional's point of view and medication point of view. But again, I'll go back to having a good diet. So really, it's pretty easy to go online and find out foods that are good for you, that are very beneficial, even cancer thwarting. Of course, be mindful that you could be allergic to a type of food, but otherwise you should probably eat as much of that good stuff as you can, because your body craves it. Your body's craving for good food so it can survive the best it can. Yeah, it can be craving chocolate. I know some of you say, oh yeah, it's craving sugar and chocolate and cupcakes and whatever. Yeah, that's a different sort. It's like an addictive craving to trick your mind. If you've got a combination of things, mental health issues, it's going to be more challenging for sure. And maybe everybody can be diagnosed with having some sort of mental health situation, but it all depends how you cope with it, doesn't it? I mean, I didn't know I had depression, like I said before, but it just answered a lot of things. And then when you know, you can focus better on how to cope with it. And focus is a good word, because I'm subject to it too. I can focus on the wrong things, and you can just keep going into a downward spiral. Someone asked on a forum the other day, what music do you like to listen to when you're suffering your depression, or when you're depressed? I had to think about that for a minute, and my answer was that I don't like to listen to music when I'm depressed, because it actually makes me more depressed, because my brain will go thinking about it in different ways. Because when I listen to music, my thoughts go in all sorts of directions they shouldn't go. So I've got to refocus somewhere else, and for me, that's doing exercise. And probably my favourite exercise really is to get out on my bicycle. And luckily for me, I have got a lot of nature in my area that I can go riding. And when it's a beautiful autumn day like this, it's a pleasure. So talking about focus, I guess you got to have something to focus on. And it could be, I said music, but for me that doesn't work, but playing music is a different thing. So maybe if you play an instrument or take up an instrument, that can be of great benefit to you. I used to play the guitar and the piano and drums when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it. And when you're concentrating on playing a sheet of music properly, that is a big distraction to other things that might be in your head. And all this focus, I guess, can lead to an important thing, which sort of, in a circuitous way, takes us back to wanting to leave this planet, is having a reason to stay on this planet. For all the bad things that are happening on this world, and there are plenty that can really get under our skin and upset us and, you know, get us motivated to attend a rally or whatever. For as much as the bad things that are happening, there's nice things. And it could be just simply as walking into your garden and just watching the bees pollinate, watching the insects engage with one another. Just watch it. What about watering a plant? Growing a plant. Get a seed and just water a plant. I'm going to stop and have a snack while I talk. I'm in this little tiny pine forest, talking about nice places. Very peaceful, not a breath of wind, sun shining through the trees. And this is beside a reservoir. It's popular without being too popular. So what I was saying before was finding something to focus on and having a reason just to hang around. And there's all sorts of reasons, really. You can become part of the community. You can fight to save something, because it's not always about us, you know. We might think, well, what do I get out of it? Well, don't worry about what you're going to get out of it, because you'll probably find that you'll get something out of it that I actually can't explain to you. You'll get some sense of satisfaction and some sense of value that you've done something worthwhile. So it could be anything from saving a little parkland, some species of animal that might be in danger. Maybe when you look at yourself and then you compare it to other people and see how they might be suffering in their situation, perhaps you could actually help them have an easier life. Imagine an old person stuck in a old person's home, and they just don't get to go out. So they just sit there in their room all day, suffering with whatever ailments they're dealing with. Loneliness, depression, physical disablements. You might be able to join some volunteer group that takes them out for a day. They would really value that. It could be going into town and watching a busker perform. Appreciate what they're doing. They took time to do that. Bit of entertainment for you. And at least clap. And if you can afford to, give them some monetary assistance. Because maybe they're dealing with some sort of depression by doing that. So everybody does something for a reason. So you've got to get focused on something that'll keep you going, that'll give you some worth, some value, a goal. And there's so many reasons. It could be anything. What keeps me going? It's a bloody good question. I could get hit by a truck tomorrow. Any of us could. I could have a stroke any minute. I could have a stroke while I'm talking now. But I feel like I'm going to be around for a little while. And one thing I don't want is to be an invalid relying on other people, if I can help it. So I'm going to try to keep my body in the best physical condition I can. And get out. You've got to get out into nature a bit, get some sunshine and enjoy the world. As I was saying before, all those bad things that are out there, there's some beautiful things too. You can grab that little beautiful thing and just enjoy it. So as far as my depression goes, I think I've got on top of it fairly well because I'm eating better. Not that my diet was ever really bad, but I did indulge in things that I just shouldn't indulge that much. I've always been a big fruit eater. I like my vegetables. I'm not a vegan or even a vegetarian, but I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I drink some alcohol. I don't drink beer. I do like the sweeter things in life. I do like my ports and my muskets and some nice ciders and some wine. But again, I don't drink a lot. I've probably been drunk twice in my whole life, and that wasn't falling down drunk. So my diet's fairly reasonable. I don't eat a lot of processed meats. I did grab my own vegetables for a while. Haven't done that this year. Homegrown vegetables are always nice. So that's something else you can do too. Just plant seeds and watch them grow and reap the rewards of tending to your plant. You'll just feel good about that. And if you put them in a meal that you cooked yourself, even better. You feel like you got some value. So good food, exercise, sleep is important. I am sleeping better. This all helps with your mental health and depression, which is so important. You've got to get those things. So that's where you can start yourself. You can try the exercise and eating better, which hopefully will improve your sleep. But if none of that's working, if you don't notice anything in 2 months, I reckon you've got to give something 2 months before you really notice your body's taking effect. And then if you need some professional help, intervention, then try to get it. So, I'm going to get back on my bike now. But while I was here, I was just enjoying the tranquility, the birds, the stillness, the sunshine. And while I was eating, I was thinking about depression can also be a result of the situation. The situation that you're in can be a great cause of depression. A sense of hopelessness, underachievement, dissatisfaction, emptiness, and on and on. Pointlessness is a big one, I guess. You're wondering what's the value in just continuing on. And this is where you have to ask yourself, what is causing you the problem and what can you change? Some things you can control, some things you can't, or you have less control. And some things could be difficult to change, but doesn't mean it's impossible. For some people, yeah, it could be an impossibility. I think I just swallowed a bug. You could be in an extreme case where you're basically a slave. You're held captive. If you're in that position, you probably wouldn't be listening to me. So if you're in a situation where you have no control of your freedom, then I don't have an answer for you, apart from somehow you trying to escape that situation as best you can. For the rest of us, we might have some difficult and complex situations that some people just may not understand, and each of us cope with those situations differently. The same situation could be handled in completely different ways by two different people because of their personality. And that's one thing that happens is people look at your circumstance and say, well, why don't you just do this? Or why don't you just do that? That's what I would do. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe they would, or maybe they wouldn't if they were in that situation. You don't know. They're only making assumptions. But it's all very well to say that that's what you would do. But that's what you do because you've got your type of personality and someone else has a different kind of personality. And they might find it hard to be assertive or confronting, or they might not have the type of skills of engagement with people that allows them to negotiate their way clear of their situation that's causing their depression. So how do you resolve that, first of all? Well, there are courses for assertiveness and how to deal with certain types of people and situations. So you can do a search for those and you can learn some skills. Some people, I guess, aren't prepared for the consequences. They don't want to cause conflict. They don't want the ramifications. They have a fear of what might happen, and they decide that the results of the confrontation isn't worth the trouble and are prepared to continue on suffering. So it just comes to a point where you feel like you can't take it anymore and you need to do something about it. But it could just mean that you open up to the person, tell them how you feel and tell them that you need to change your life. So changing your circumstances can be quite a traumatic situation. Could be scary, could be fraught with danger. Domestic violence is a big issue these days, so it's quite a challenge for some people to speak up, to change their situation. But there are ways out of it. There are ways out of it. You just got to speak to the right people to help you out, whether it's the authorities or family and friends. But it is difficult. Or you might be able to stay in your situation, but make it a bit more tolerable, even pleasant for yourself by having different outlets and things. So basically, I guess in short, making the best of a shit situation. Or it's not even a shit situation. It just might be circumstances that are not conducive with you being satisfied with your life. That can all come back to finding groups to talk to, involving yourself in different activities, different interests, things to keep you occupied. And at the same time, you could be improving your health and well-being. And if you're watching any tutorials on self-improvement, you could be slowly changing yourself. And you might change yourself to the point one day where what you thought once was impossible is now quite foreseeable. You might have built up your self-confidence and worth to the point where you can now approach someone and give them an ultimatum about your circumstances needing to change. So depression's got a lot of aspects to it, doesn't it? You can have depression for lots of different reasons. One thing I want to say was though, is you've got every right to deserve a happy, stress-free life. Hey buddy.
Hey.
Hello. Nice day. I just passed a guy in a wheelchair, obvious mental health conditions, physical disability, and he's out riding his wheelchair in this beautiful sunshine, and he's probably enjoying it. Gave me a smile and seemed happy. So how can I complain? How can I complain? Thing is, we can always find a reason to complain, can't we? Contentment. That's what people really want. I want to be content. What was I talking about just before? I forgot what I said. Changing your situation, modifying it. So depression, lots of reasons that lead to it, but probably a lot of similar things that will alleviate it. And we never know who's dealing with it, to what capacity. So we need to be kinder when we interact with other people. So I think that's all I've got to say about depression for now. There's different reasons for it, different severities and different ways it affects people, but the ways to deal with it are all fairly similar. So I don't know if my talk about depression has helped you in any way, shape or form, but it's something I just wanted to talk about to help me as well, because I wasn't feeling too good the last few days. But I also have learned that I have cycles, and when I'm feeling pretty down, I know just to give it a few days and I'll come out of it a little bit better. It used to be for long periods of time, now it might be only a day or two or three. So I just got to distract myself with things like going out for a ride. So it's a gorgeous autumn day and that makes me feel good. And when you can get an opportunity like this, just grasp it, make the most of it. I'll just finish off by saying that, again, I'm doing this chat more for my own benefit than for anything else. If you get something out of it, that's fine. Just know that you don't have to keep suffering your depression as you are. There are ways to alleviate it. It might not ever disappear, probably won't, but you can learn ways to deal with it, function with it, and try to get some enjoyment out of life. Change your life, because you'll change with it.